one of the topics I want to throw out there, Laura, is, again, we have to revisit New Orleans. And I know a lot of people are tired of me talking about New Orleans, but I cannot stop talking about New Orleans because there hasn't been the type of recovery that we expect in that city. And with all of these people that are people of color that have been displaced, and not even just people of color, I mean, the whole community has been displaced. There needs to be accountability for the billions of dollars that are being spent down there. Now, one of the things that's been in the news recently is that a particular committee within the United Nations has reprimanded and condemned the United States for its lack of support of the black community down there in repatriating those people that have been displaced and providing them with the resources that they need. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out also was there was another article I was looking at, and, you know, my problem is, Lord, I never have enough time to read, but there was a fund that was established by, you know, Governor Blanco, the former governor of Louisiana, that was established to help people with their legal fees in order to be able to, you know, claim the monies that they need from these to get reestablished back in the state of New Orleans. And that particular funding ran out, and there was more money was pledged, and it was cut. So one of the things that I'm looking at, here you have the UN saying that the United States hasn't lived up to its responsibilities. Here you have the obstacles that people are facing, that when they do come back, they have to have resources to file the legal paperwork and things like that. And the process is very intricate, and they can't do it because they don't have the people to help them. I mean, it's like the deck is stacked against them. Yeah,
and it's what's horrendous about this is even the initial situation was just beyond comprehension that our federal government would allow something like this to happen. But now it's even more heinous that, you know, years later, these people are dealing with the same, it's even worse because now they have no hope in sight because nothing's being done to get them back into the situations, and they're dealing with the, you know, the situation of closing down the projects, and you know, people who have nowhere else to go can't return. They've even displaced a lot of the people of color and moved them further away than other people, so that their chance of having a connection to the communities or to find out what's going on with their council people is next to nothing. I mean, I know when you hear about it, you hear that, okay, some of the casinos and, you know, the French Quarters and some of those tourist areas have gotten back up to speed, but the people who live, you know, the average everyday people who live there are nowhere near getting close to getting back to their lives.
Well, I mean, they had the opportunity to go back to the 9th Ward recently, and they looked at it and they were surprised at the lack of progress that has been in terms of reconstruction and actual repatriation of people of color in those communities. I mean, they were talking about the number of people, for example, in Houston is a population of 100,000. New Orleans, actually 100,000 people, they said, displaced people from New Orleans to that particular area, which I don't know if that's true or not. Probably 100,000 people from Louisiana because of the outer district areas of the city. But the thing I think is interesting, they were talking about, well, a lot of these people haven't even registered to vote because they want to go back. They want to go back and participate in their own government. But what are we doing, or what is the government doing to make that happen? Yeah. And you have all of these organizations like Brad Pitt's organization, the gentleman from Barnes and Noble that are investing money to try to build houses for people. But, for example, the requirements is that they need to have legal documents to say that they can, you know, that they own the land and they were free and clear of liability and stuff. And a lot of these people don't have that, and they don't have the lawyers to pay for it.
Yeah, and there's no way. I mean, a lot of people lost very important documents. I mean, the entire area was devastated. So to have people now suffer with a situation that is totally and completely beyond their control, it's not like you're saying, okay, well, you didn't go back to your house and retrieve your papers. The papers aren't there. So a lot of people are suffering, and there needs to be some sort of situation that corrects the problem. You know, it's one of my pet peeves in government. I know there's always an exception that can be made. You know, there are reasons for rules and regulations, and you understand that there are procedures that need to be followed. But when something devastating or something out of the ordinary occurs, it's what I call an executive decision in business. You know, okay, you can't do it as a customer service rep, but who's your supervisor? You know, or who's the person on the top who can make a decision and say, okay, look, this just shouldn't have happened. I'm going to go ahead and do something. This is that on a major scale, but it's something that really warrants it, if nothing else. I mean, we had one of the most, the most major natural disaster in American history, and we're still not doing anything to correct it for the people who are most affected.
Now, there was a particular article that I think me and you had a chance to review, and this political think tank said that the reason is not money that these communities haven't come back together. The reason is infrastructure, the institutions within the communities. Now, what do you think of that, about that particular argument?
Well, the people I know, and they talked about a little bit about the fact that they're not reaching out to their council people, and they're not, I mean, again, you're talking about people who have been devastated. Some people who didn't have, we unfortunately, who haven't gone through that situation, don't have the political know-how or keep informed as we should be on the political process and how these things affect ourselves, how they affect us economically as well as socially. So you can imagine people who didn't have that advantage, who were struggling, who were just barely getting by, who were working for 30 years just to keep a roof over their head, and then they're devastated by this situation. Now you're expecting them to be politically sophisticated is very unreasonable. I mean, that's why I'm saying that it's the government's responsibility now to educate and inform and do whatever they need to in order to make the situation whole again.
Well, and it's very interesting because one of the things that was mentioned in the article that was talking about that there's a political and economic philosophy that's being put forth within New Orleans. That New Orleans used to be, as a matter of fact, New Orleans went Democratic the last 2 times. And as a matter of fact, the state went Democratic the last 2 times in terms of the presidential elections. They voted twice for Clinton. So you're talking about a major Democratic bloc within that city being removed. And some people like it that way, and they want to make sure it stays that way. So,
and there just needs to be a larger outcry over the situation because, and you know what, I think there probably needs to be more pictures because I can't tell you how many times I've heard about people who've gone down there and said, wow, the Ninth Ward, you'd be devastated over the lack of change, but we haven't seen, all these, what we were talking about earlier, the news media isn't showing us important stuff. They're giving us a lot of fluff and stuff that's really insignificant as opposed to giving us the full impact of the situation so that we can get an idea of what's going on there or what's not going on there.